So what are this? What is in this policy framework to go about that will cover both legal and health, issues?
Well, I think it would be premature to talk about the policy, the full details, because it's quite a mouthful. Monday is not too far away. The Commission has been deliberating on this policy for weeks on end. And the reason is not far-fetched. Just like you said, this pandemic is novel. We've seen viruses before, but I don't think we have seen a virus in as many years that has brought the world to its knees, literally. Yes. And because elections involve interaction of people, voters, observers, journalists, political party supporters, agents, and even our staff at the polling units, it's very important that we take cognizance of the dangers posed by these interactions in view of this virus. And we have elections. We have postponed elections because of this virus. On by-election we had, we were forced to postpone because of the virus. And then we have these time-bound elections coming up, end of tenure governorship election for Edo and Ondo. And the Constitution did not give this latitude that you can hold that election anytime. So there is a specific time frame for holding the election, because the Constitution prescribes the end of, we know when the
tenure expires.
Yes, it expires, and the Constitution has prescribed the time frame during which the election must be held. And INEC has no power to change that. We can change dates of certain aspects of the activities and timetable that we issued, but we cannot go outside the time frame given by the Constitution. That's why we now have to think out of the box. How do we conduct this election? That has led the Commission to bring out this policy that we're going to release on Monday. And I'm sure by Monday, if you want me to come back,
can you give us like little things to look forward to for some of the things that might be changing? Because there was something that I have been trying to read up and look at elections all over the world and what people are doing. And there are, like in Poland, they're trying to look at online voting, and in America they're talking about mail-in voting and things like that. Those are things that I don't know if we are capable of doing here. In fact, there are people suggesting drive-through voting, in America, and how in South Korea we know that they had early voting so that people can vote as early just before the date so that everybody gets to vote. One of the things that I've observed, though, even with all of this and all of this planning, is that there was a low turnout of people at the polls. It looks like that might be an inevitable happening because of COVID-19. Is that something that, INEC has envisaged?
Definitely. The federal authorities, health authorities, the NCDC and the Federal Ministry of Health have established protocols for gathering, the distance between one individual and another. And of course, like you observed, at the polling unit you will have people queuing up to go and vote. Of course, it's one person at a time. You go in, we have this system of continuous accreditation and voting. So you go, you get accredited, and then you go and cast your ballot. But then there will be interaction. So this policy will take cognizance of the protocols established by the health authorities. First of all, we must be able to be sure that we must be sure that you don't have the virus. And
how are you going to do that?
No, what I'm saying is, on face value, we cannot tell. But one of the preliminary things we'll do is to put the device through which we can measure your temperature. So that if your temperature goes above the level, then above the required level, the normal level, then you'll be politely turned back. But this will also involve officials of the NCDC. So this is part of the consultation that INEC is undertaking.
Let me, because this what you just said now is quite interesting to me. That if you check temperature and then people will be turned back, will there be an opportunity for those people to cast their vote later, because they might feel disenfranchised if you say, okay, you don't feel well, so you can cast your votes because some people are at risk, and then they go back home, they didn't get to vote, they didn't choose who their leader will be.
Well, we don't expect that to be widespread. You understand? If you're not sick, you're not sick. Unfortunately, some people have argued that the symptoms of malaria are similar to the symptoms of COVID-19. But you see, these are the protocols established by the health authorities. And if we go against that, we'll also be liable. The idea is not to disenfranchise. It's precaution, because right there, we are also going to put all other measures in place, hand sanitizers and all of that. I don't want to talk too much, because when the policy is released, we can then break it down, and I'll be able to explain process by process. But these are part of the things we're talking about. We're going to have our ad hoc officials in the polling units. People are going to bring out their permanent voters card. You are going to put in the smart card readers. You have to touch. You understand? That has implications. Then you have to, thumbprint or fingerprint on the ballot paper and drop it. And some people will have to attend to
sieve through that. And
that's
after
right.
Everything.
And if you know how the polling unit is, it's not a very big place, except, of course, if it's in a primary school or a secondary school and all of. There are some polling units that are not in a very big place.
Yes.
So these are the things. And when people are on queue, we have a window between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m., except for those who are still on the queue before 2 p.m. and the voting can then extend a little bit later. So how are we going to ensure the safety of the voters and the safety of our officials? And we also think of the security agents
as well
that will be there. So the framework will look at all of this.
I want to ask this because it's probably not it's premature to preempt what is in the framework because we haven't seen it, but I do think you'll give me a little tips before then. But I just want to ask this: is there going to be an out of the box way of doing this, or are we still going to just see a management of our regular process? That's one thing I want to ask, because if it's going to be business as usual, but people will just take precautions and will take temperatures, and it might not be foolproof. So what is there that will be done differently, to cope with these times?
Well, it won't be business as usual in the context of how we have been conducting elections before. You understand? It's not a situation where there won't be control. There has to be crowd control, and there has to be physical distancing at the polling unit level. So we'll probably have to draw circles and show voters where they're going to stand on the queue, and this will probably involve talking with the voters before the election commences, and then there will be officials who will guide the voters on how to go about things, and of course people will come with their mask. It's really going to be a challenge. It's uncharted waters for us. Nobody prepared for this kind of scenario, so everything we are doing will be first of its kind. And of course, when you are trying something for the first time, there are bound to be hitches, but we'll manage these hitches. But as much as possible, we will let Nigerians know, voters know exactly what we are doing and why we are doing these things. And if we get their cooperation, it shouldn't be a difficult thing. Yes, we'll probably have challenges here and there, people complaining about one thing or so and all of that. But if the cooperation is there and the will is there, I'm sure we'll be able to get it over with. Thank God this is not general election. This is just governorship election in
Thank
two
God
states.
for that.
Right. We are going to have a Edo Fest. So I'm sure the experiences, whatever happens in Edo, will also guide further
what will happen
in
Ondo State.
So
it's interesting that they will probably be the